Welcome to Expedient Means with Lin Wei on Time Monk Radio. Lin currently resides in China and is the founder and head teacher of Guizhen Philo-Cultural Society. He has extensive experience in Buddhist and Taoist meditation, Qigong, martial arts, and traditional Chinese medicine. To learn more about Lin, please visit his website at www.guizhenhui.net. Tonight's topic will be Confucius, an overview of his teachings. And welcome back, Lin. We've had a little bit of a stretch.
Oh, yeah.
No show was recorded.
Yeah, I was doing a lot of moving and preparing new work and getting settled in a new city. Got a lot of stuff ahead of us. It's cultural lectures, and where I'm teaching now, it's mainly Tai Chi, meditation, Qigong, philosophy, and trying to boost up and change some of the education or how education is brought in China with old Chinese methods, like traditional culture and modern culture. So it's a lot of work I've been immersed in the last few months. And now we got some time. Oh, yeah.
I was actually going to lead in tonight with a quote from Escape from New York, and I was going to say, Lin Wei, I thought you were dead. I don't know, never seen the movie. Anyhow, so yeah, Confucius, he's like the boring guy that says you should do whatever the government tells you and, kiss everybody's butt, right?
That's the notion people seem to have. I mean, we can just say, if we take the Bible and all of its translations and commentaries since it was published, how many times have people been misled? How many times did it have to be redone, meaning the commentaries? So, I mean, really, things can be very much misinterpreted over thousands of years.
So is the main book, Confucius, is the Analects, of course, right?
Yeah, there's let's see, there's the Analects that I've been immersing myself in for a while. And then there's another one, I think it's called the Spring Annals, which is basically the background of the Analects, meaning the Analects is a compilation of conversations that he's had with various students and officials. So what the other book, the Spring Annals, I believe it's called, which I haven't really looked into as deeply because I haven't had much time recently to put anything together on that. But that basically gives you the background as to why he speaks the things he does to certain people and then changes it for other people. It gives you the background of the environment he's in. It tells you a little bit about why he's having these specific thoughts. So it's a very important addition to the Analects.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that book. And Confucius, of the three teachers, the Buddha, Lao Tzu, and Confucius is probably the one I think we most historically that too. But as far as historically, I think he's the most sort of well known, or maybe well known is not a good way to put it, but the most historically accurate, or the one we know the most about historically. Would that be
pretty
true?
much? I mean, because the Buddha has a lot of sutras, a lot of discussions, and they're written in several, I mean, many books, sutras. So, it's really hard to get a quote unquote personality on the Buddha, which is kind of funny because the Buddha's like drop personality,
right.
Drop the view of a personality. So it's kind of like hard to get what kind of quote-unquote person the Buddha was, Sakyamuni Buddha. And for Lao Tzu, you just got one book on him, and how do you get the kind of person behind it? What's the background behind them? Good thing with the Buddha is that you have a whole history before he became the Buddha in his lifetime at that point. So you have an understanding of why he came to the way he did. And then you have his discussions on past lives that go into how he was cultivating and what made him go into that kind of cultivation. So you have books on that, which are not very much looked at unless you are you are secular, because they put a lot of time into understanding the Buddhist teachings and they go deep into reading his history.
Should I start this off with a curveball right out of the gate?
Sure, that's it. Go ahead. What can I do?
All right, now, I probably know how you're going to answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway. A lot of people I've read have said that Confucius is more concerned with society as a whole, whereas, say, Lao Tzu is more concerned with the individual. What are your thoughts on that?
I think I'm going to have to end the show. I'm going to say that is a terrible, terrible misinterpretation of his work. Confucius basically spoke on society, right? But how are you going to speak on society unless you talk about the person itself? He really laid a foundation for a person to cultivate their overall well-being, their overall essence. Okay, but what happens is when you talk about society, politics get involved, and then that is the most superficially seen. Is the most thing seen when you make a big noise about society. People look at that, and then they got to go into the politics of everything. So when you see things basically on Confucius' teachings, and he's only talking about society, well, it's because people only focused on that, because that was a very big influence into the country. But he really did go deep down into making the person cultivate.
Would you say then that maybe Confucius is sort of a cultivation for the common man type thing? I guess when I say that is more like regimented type rules to follow.
It looks regimented, it looks very narrow, but actually it's very liberal. And no, I don't see it as being something for a common man. I think it's seeing for every man, every type of quote unquote level of person in society, in the world. Because he goes into laying down a whole groundwork, and then he goes into how to practice that whole groundwork. And then when you add in the cultivation he discusses, then you're going into what we do in meditation, what we do in yoga, what we do in qigong. If you don't have a decent quote, okay, I'll just say it the way I say it. If you don't have a decent person, and then you give them power practices, I would consider power practices like energy work, qigong practices, or any spiritual practices outside of doing things almost intellectually and then going into the non-intellect. Okay, if you just give them that, then they're going to think they're the best under heaven, that they are very wonderful and they know everything they need to know. But if you compare how the Buddha laid out his Eightfold Path, and then you deeply look at Confucius's teachings and how he laid out certain methods, they're very similar. They're all laying out a foundation on how to get yourself into a clean state, or a state of almost a purity, even though you'll make mistakes in here and there. But it goes into a very deep human level where you clean out your personality, and then you're close to that, like the sages, saying you are a noble person, you do good, you are respectful because you give that respect to other people. Therefore, people respect you, so you are well respected. You are worthy of respect. And who's worthy of respect? The people who cultivate and understand humility and actually are living that way without having to think, am I being humble? Or I'm going to be humble now and I won't be humble later. Okay, there's a big difference between that. So he lays out a very, very, very clean-cut, straight-up method on how to go through those stages of cultivation, from a very human, conditional method to a much higher level spiritual method.
Yeah, and I mean, you can cultivate, say, the heart center by sitting there and focusing your intention on the heart and, visualizing it glowing out, all that. Or, you can go out and do good deeds and see how good it makes people feel. And I mean, that in itself is also cultivating the heart, right?
Yes. One of the big things Confucius talks about is righteousness, humility, putting down the ego, not imposing your will on other people. These things are fundamental in the interdependence of everything in our world, where I need to go to work. And he's not saying, well, if the boss says jump, you say how high. He's saying if it makes sense to do what other people tell you to do, and it's beneficial not just for them, but for you also, and for everyone else around you, by all means do it without question. But if there's no logic, there's no reason, it's not rational, yet at the same time, it doesn't fit for the overall well-being in conscience, the good, okay, then why would you do it?
So if my boss tells me to go and eat babies, it's probably not a good idea.
Probably not, unless you add a little salt, some carrots, some celery.
That was a bad one. Bad joke.
You best to add some ginger to cut out the meaty flavor.
It's been a long time.
So look, his main ideas. Excuse me. What were his main ideas? Let's look at that quickly. To be a person who has made deep progress in the way of self-cultivation, developing a sense of justice, loving treatment of parents, respect for elders, honesty with friends. His ideas were for one to become a noble, quote-unquote, noble person, a person worthy of others' respects, honor and friendship. So that means to cultivate the way of being human, proper conduct and virtue. This kind of practice is for oneself, and in turn allows others to feel within the kind of person you are. Let them feel within, oh, this person is good. I like this person. Also, regardless if they see it or not. I mean, people may not see you being a good person because of what they want from you or how they want to do things with you. Maybe you don't go along with it, so they'll be angry at you and create another gossip about you. But it's important to realize that one follows the rules of cultivating a decent character, full of virtue and humility. You got to really know that within yourself, that this is what I'm doing. And if people got a problem with that and they don't like that I push them aside or push them away, well, then that's their problem. Because if you're following a path that brings you down and then you step out of it, those people who tried to bring you down, or that energy that tries to bring you down, will be in conflict with you. That's why you push people away.
Misery loves company, right?
Oh, I'm telling you, yeah. Yeah, definitely. So, like attracts like. If you have crazy people around you, check yourself. Do you have those qualities? And if you do, change them. And you realize that those people will either have more and more conflict with you, or they'll be further away from you. So that's why the Buddha says, one of the bad things, one of the bad types of karma is being with the people, around the people you hate. Or not just hate, but I mean being around the people who are not very wholesome. You try and try and try, but they always bring you down. So where is that in you? Do you have those qualities in you? And if you do, work on changing them. Because then when you do, you realize you do have the strength to step away, and those people will have conflict with you, or they would walk away from you.
Well, I mean, yes, but sometimes it's easier said than done, right? I mean, if it's, say,
yeah.
Well, but sometimes, I mean, almost every time, people are in certain family situations where, you have to deal with people in your family or whatever, right?
Well, it's different. There's different levels of that. If it's friendship or it's somewhat of a outside relationship of the family, it's a little different and less complex. But when it's with family, there should be a regard of that person where you won't push them into a line, or they won't push you into a line where you would separate from them, whether it's spouse or just family members. Yet, if the other person doesn't understand that, and you do, then you play your game. You do what you know is right. Don't go to certain aspects of things and hold back. Because even though it's family and sometimes you just want to throw them out the window, you don't want to do that, really. So you be patient. Because they're family, you have that regard. Okay, look, they're my sister, they're my cousin. I'm not going to, bitch and complain, leave it alone. They don't want to accept this and that, fine. You know what? Don't accept this and that. I don't have to prove my rightness to them, and I don't have to accept what they understand or what they think is right. That's it. Let's just have dinner together, shut the hell up, watch some TV or listen to some music or have a glass of wine or coffee or tea and just chill out. Because they're not going to change. So just leave it alone, or just don't call them. Or call them once in a while. And there's ways to deal with it. It's complex with families only because of an ego, and only because of what we feel we don't want to be around. So we have to adjust. And that's patience. That's really exercising a person's patience.
I guess, I'm just thinking of it in terms of Confucius's teachings about filial piety, right? And,
Mm-hmm.
do some of these, is it possible that one analect could sort of conflict with another one, and in which case, which do you follow, right?
Interesting. I'm glad you brought that up. This is a big problem. After Confucius had left the world, and people interpret his teachings left and right in the up and down manners, people only accepted what was convenient for them. So the ideas of filial piety that we see in the world now, based on, well, I'll just quote unquote, based on Confucius' teachings, are actually misinterpretations. And I'll say it and I'll argue it with anyone, even the best of scholars, and I'll probably lose because my language use isn't very high. My language level isn't very high, and they'll probably kick my butt with all these big type of words. But no, he's not saying your parents tell you to eat crap, you just got to eat crap without arguing with them. He's saying if the parents tell you how something should be done, and you have an opposition, you feel this is the wrong way it should be done, converse with them, discuss. I believe this. And if they don't give you the time of day to discuss, then you wait. And if it's where you feel you have to do it now because that's what they want, well then, you have to use common sense. If this is going to hurt me physically and emotionally and mentally, maybe I shouldn't do it regardless. And if the parents don't want to listen, then you wait. You wait for them to cool down. Then you bring it up in a way that doesn't put them down. Because when you put someone down in your proving or quote-unquote proving that you're right, what you're doing is ego versus ego. Find a diplomatic way that tells them, this is how I see it. Can we find a mutual ground? And if we can't, then I'm not doing it at all. And you have to do it in a respectful way. So that's cultivating your mind. You're trying to learn how to word things and how to present yourself without taking away from your essence, and not how to not give it to someone else who's going to either try to manipulate you or control you for their benefit. So he's trying to go very intricate in this, but people only can take or accept what they understand, what they have the capacity to understand. That's why I say these aspects of filial piety, for most part, that most people see, are very wrongly interpreted. It's not that the parent just says, hey, you better do this because I'm your parent, and go after yourself and I'll slap you around. And you just got to listen regardless. I mean, we see that all the times in modern, quote-unquote, modern families, modern Chinese families. And everyone on the outside is going, what the hell is that? They go, that's Confucius' teachings. And I don't want to learn about Confucius. That's crazy. I don't want to get brainwashed. Me neither. I don't want to get brainwashed, right? So you got to look back and look at the teachings and say, is he really saying that without bias? You just got to read it and contemplate it and see, wait, no, this doesn't make sense. You know?
I guess you could say Confucius is primarily concerned with the greater good, maybe?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very much so. I mean, one of his main concepts is the noble person worthy of others' respects. Excuse me. And I use the text that was translated and commented on by Charles Muller, A. Charles Muller. Okay, and I found his commentary and his translations to be very in-depth because he spent many years looking at the Chinese language and researching it and researching these classics. And he's really given a lot of a diversity and even comparing others' translations, and he spent a lot of time doing it. So I find his translations very, very well. And I discussed it with some of the scholars here in where I am at, because the school I work with now is very much focused on traditional culture. And I speak to these people, and I've done lectures in other universities where the people I talk to are language specialists, language professors, philosophy professors, Chinese classics professors. So these people spent their lifetime looking at it. And I'm not talking about 20 years, I'm talking about 40 years, 50 years. And they spend all their time studying this stuff. That's what they make their living on. So I talk to these people and I try to compare what I found to what they think. And they actually had no problem with things I was just reiterating, not throwing my own idea, to see if this man's translation that I enjoy is worth. And people are liking that. So I use that as a base.
All right.
One of the things.
Do you want to
Yeah,
get
I
into
wanted
some of
to.
the intellects?
I do. I want to go through some of them. There's one that goes, Confucius says, Confucius say. I know people are gonna do that.
There's a whole series of jokes if people are.
I know, I know. I think of like 15 million of them now, but he says, isn't it a pleasure to study and practice what you have learned? Isn't it also great when friends visit from distant places? If people do not recognize me and it doesn't bother me, am I not a noble man? So
No, you're not.
no, everyone has to know me. I just wiped with my left hand instead of the right hand. Everyone should bow down to me. And then you have another man say, yeah, but I used the toilet paper. Worship me instead. But this is actually saying what Lao Tzu was saying in one of the chapters in the Tao Te Ching about the sage does good and lets everyone else benefit from it, doesn't take credit for it. This is he's saying also. So these things are interrelated. They're not far away from each other.
Well,
it's just they're put in.
It makes sense since Confucius learned everything from Lao Tzu, right?
I don't know. Who knows? I know there was some discussion of it being where he would pass around Lao Tzu once in a while and have a conversation or five. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know. And if it was, why not? That's awesome. And in those days, those who were considered knowledgeable into the influence of other people in such a deep level did converse with elders, and that was common. It doesn't mean Confucius was just stupid, so he had to go talk to Lao Tzu to make sure. It doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean that at all. There's always a discussion between people who are older and who have more knowledge than you. You know, I go to people who have 15, 20 years over me in the stuff I'm looking at, and I ask them some questions. And if it makes sense, then I try to make it my own. You go to a martial artist to learn what they know, and then you try to see if their whole methodology makes sense to you over time, and then you make it your own. It's common. You know, we do that with our schools now, you know. So in this thing he's saying, you know, when one actually lives what they've learned, haven't they not wasted a single breath, you know, taking in and receiving that knowledge? Now, that itself should be pleasing to one, you know. He says that when friends visit from distant places, isn't it great? And when friends come from far places just to stay with you and see you for the short time they can, what does that say to you about you as a person and how much value someone places upon you? And someone travels from far off places, spends so much money just to be near you. You know, they appreciate you. Some people appreciate liars and cheaters too, while others appreciate more righteous and virtuous ones. It is all relative anyway. You know, and speaking on righteousness and virtue, when someone comes to see you and they toil through so much time just to visit you, that reflects that you are a kind person, or reflects the kind of person you are, and says that within you there is something that is commendable. Even if there's something commendable, it doesn't mean you are wholly a wonderful, righteous person. It just means someone appreciates you, and that's pretty awesome to have. You know, and I like this part most. It says, when others don't recognize me and I don't get angry, doesn't that mean I'm self-respected, upright, and in proper conduct? You know, meaning a noble person worthy of respect. When people don't know who you are and you get angry, that means you are lacking something within. If you're lacking your own,
or you have a strong ego or something, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, usually we use the ego and cover up our faults. You know, we feel bad about our faults, so it's low self-esteem. We don't believe in ourselves and the truth of what we do, so we have to cover it up with other stories. You know. So if you get angry over that, it shows you have a lack of self-esteem, and you lack belief in yourself. You're not at peace inside. And when others know who you are, the ego arises, and the chin goes up, chest puffs out, and you think, damn, I'm awesome. So many people know me and love me and give me attention. That is not a sign of a humble heart, man. And it's not a sign of genuine respect or having true respect for others either. It's like, where are you? Don't you know who I am? I'm such and such person. I can do such and such things. You should bow your head before me or shake my hand without me having to put my hand out first. You know?
All right. Can we go to the next one?
We can move along. I took a few, excuse me, I took a few excerpts here and there. I
Right.
didn't use the whole thing because the Analects is very, very long. So
You just boiled it down to the good parts, right?
there's too many. I just took a
I'm
few that
just
I think would be very good.
just kidding.
That was a curveball, right? I missed it.
Just testing.
Yeah, the master say. Excuse me. The master said, someone who is a clever speaker and maintains a contrived smile is seldom considered to be a really good person. And it just is.
That's reminiscent of the Tao Te Ching as well, right?
Oh yeah.
I can't remember the exact verse, but something about beautiful words are never true and true words are never beautiful, or something to that effect, right?
But if you want to go into something more modern, go to the 2008 elections in America. Excuse me. I'll continue on this commentary. So, someone who has a good control over facial expressions or can just smile and talk, right, in ways to make up principles when there aren't any in order to convince people to believe him, is usually hiding the truth from others so he can get benefits himself. For those with a sense of wisdom or some sense of wisdom and good common sense, they can see through people who smile well and talk a good talk. And those people are few and far between. If you go back to 2008 elections, those who are dull in their wisdom faculties cannot tell the difference. No offense, a lot of people. They hear something, some principle, and think, wow, he really sounds intelligent. He can't be wrong ever. So Confucius reverts back to the humility principle. True humility isn't shown by a smile and good talk. It doesn't hide in insinuations of humility while covering up self-praise, and I know we know a lot of people like that. True humility is felt and witnessed by the heart and displayed by one's demeanor. Sorry.
Yeah, and it sometimes drives me crazy when I see these deceptive American politicians or whatever. Right? It doesn't have to be doesn't have to be American. It can be Canadian or what have you, right? And like I look at them and they're so obviously just telling people what they want to hear. And it's like, why can't people see through this? It's like,
man,
it drives me nuts.
It's just, yeah, it's really just Halloween all the time.
Yeah.
It's like kid coming by wearing a mask, trick or treat. I'm Optimus Prime. Whoa, you're Optimus Prime. Here, let me give you your Energon pellets. And
I've got change you can believe in.
Yeah,
just not the change you want.
Oh man. Yes, you can see through. Oh, this is such a bad insinuations here. So, when I was younger, I used to think about this next piece here. One of Confucius' disciples, Cengzi, he said, each day I examine myself in 3 ways. In doing things for others, have I been disloyal? In my interactions with friends, have I been untrustworthy? Have not practiced what I have preached? Have I not practiced what I have preached? When I was young, my sister, my first teacher for I'll just call it this way, spiritual cultivation, meditation, and intuition, and all that fun stuff. She used to teach me this stuff. She used to say, you should check and see what you are doing and if it's beneficial for other people. When I would try to, realize some types of what we'll consider to be abilities, she said you should ask yourself, whatever you wish to gain, how will it help others? How will it better the lives of the people around you? And how will others gain from it? That was just basically saying to remain humble, investigate your desires, wishes, and aspirations. Do they help others while benefiting yourself? Do they bring others good things, all the while helping you maintain your good? It's very important things here. So, Confucius's disciples are reiterating what Confucius has been saying, that you have to check yourself. You have to always check yourself before you make a mess of things.
And in this case too, I think a lot of people can really deceive themselves about this one because they can basically convince themselves that they're doing something for other people when in fact it's really they're doing it for their own reasons, right?
Personal gain, that's right. In our world, many believe they must try to get first, and then maybe they will share with others, just as long as others don't try to be as successful as them. I've had experiences like this with these kinds of peoples and learned how not to be like them. They taught me not to do those things by doing exactly the things like that. Some people like to use their friends for own personal gain and give nothing back. Just try to do things, make decisions in ways which can only be of good influence to others, as well as uplifting your own life in a wholesome way. If you're afraid of losing the place you're in, the position or whatnot, your status, then you have some work to do on your own self-esteem. There's too much greed in the heart when at that point. So we always got to check ourselves. What are we doing?
All right. Well, that one's pretty self-explanatory, I think. Pretty much.
Yeah. This one I liked because it goes into filial piety. The master say, a young man. I'm going to do that. It's just, it gets everyone to say, hey, I know that. Excuse me.
Confucius say,
the master said, a young man should serve his parents at home and be respectful to elders outside his home. He should be earnest and truthful, loving all, but become intimate with his innate good-heartedness. After doing this, if he has enough energy to spare, he can study literature and the arts. Excuse me. Got a little phlegm in my throat. Excuse me, coughing right into the mic. That's always professional. Yeah. We talked about this earlier in history. Many have been abusing this idea and forcing their children to do only as they say. This is where the idea of children must obey the parents, and do everything only for their parents comes in. This phrase, I believe, was used in order to control people instead of look at the true meaning behind it. In China, we have a saying, if the family is good, society is good. If society is good, the government will not get involved. There's something like that. I don't remember the exact thing to it. It basically means that if the family is balanced in harmony, then society will not undergo serious problems. If society is at peace to a degree, the government doesn't have to get involved in the lives of people, unless they're greedy and power hungry.
So it's kind of like the microcosm is in harmony with the macrocosm and vice versa.
Pretty much. I mean, if you're cool with having cold water running in your house, then you don't need hot water to get involved. And if you like hot water, you don't need cold water to get involved. But if you like some warmth, some warm water instead of hot or cold, then you mix them two together and they create a harmony. That's how home, society, and the government work together. When I need help from the whole of the people around me, or if I want to influence the people around me in society, then I have to make sure I'm pretty solid. Because if I influence the people in society and they start running amok, then the government has to come in and give me a beatdown. It pretty much is simple mathematics. So if I'm doing things well and the society is doing things well, the government says, I don't even know what that place is. What's the name of that city again? I don't even remember. That's what you want. Because they go, everything's all fine and dandy. Okay, we don't have to do anything.
Don't have to bother with it or worry about it, right?
Don't have to, unless they're power hungry and create problems to cause havoc in society, which then affects the home life. And then everyone's up in arms, and you have all out chaos. And some people like that. So here, he's going into being respectful to the family, to the parents, means to not complain when they ask you questions that you feel are unimportant. It also means that when you dislike something, you must respectfully speak your piece. When you see parents do something wrong, find a way to explain to them their mistakes and do it in a way which doesn't hurt them, personally. Because in truth, parents gave us something we can't give back, our body and the energy to jumpstart the body. That is a blessing, and that's amazing. And yet we all treat our lives as though it's too usual. So respecting our parents by helping them out in the house, spending time with them, keeping their hearts at ease, listening to them when they offer advice, but also disagreeing in a proper and soft manner. If that engages proper speech, proper thought, and proper conduct, it strengthens one's essence, because you're not burning yourself with anger. In our modern world, most children feel they must prove to their parents that they are adult-like and can handle responsibility. As a child, one does not need to prove they are an adult simply because they are a child. Just by respectfully listening to the parents when they speak, or offering your ideas and complaints with an educated and respectful manner, and help out around the house by taking responsibilities into your own hands is good. That's, my child can handle responsibility. I can actually have a decent conversation with him without having to go off on a tangent trying to explain to him what I think is the right thing. So Confucius doesn't mean don't speak up and take beatings from your parents when you do, or just for the hell of it. Yeah? The parents have taken this idea and used it to gain more control and blame the child when they would disagree. Thus, we see this style of interpretation, which is indeed wrong, and parents should not hurt their children or cover up their mistakes by hitting and yelling at them. It's best to admit mistakes when they're done, so the child will learn what it means to take responsibility for their actions. If the parents perform ignorant actions, the child will eventually learn how to be that way too, and that goes right into society and government. If the government does one specific way, then the society and the people and just sit there and go, oh, well, they do it, I can do it too. And then in the home life, people are going to be like, well, it's legal, right? The government does it, it's legal. I can do whatever I want. If society is doing the same thing too, why can't we do it? And then we destroy the house.
I've got a question. I've got a question. No, it's not a curveball. It's just actually probably a pretty easy one. How ingrained is the some of these Confucius teachings in the Chinese society at present and in the Chinese government? Like, do they try and incorporate Confucianism into the government? Okay,
this is a very, very wonderful question. Damn, this is a good topic to start up on our recordings. Confucius's influence has been around for a little bit over 2,000 years. So they have 2,000 years to cultivate it, whether in the good way or the bad way. In our modern society, or let's even just go into this, the last 60 somewhat years of Chinese communism, we see different stages of communism. We see the Chinese ideas of communism and develop from its basic sense to 30 years into itself. And then you go jumpstart another 10 years, go further another 10 years with a different, from Mao Zedong to Deng Xiaoping. You have his influence, and then from Deng Xiaoping, I believe you have Jiang Zemin. And, well, this should be in that order. But each chairman of China brings in a different influence for that generation. And when it gets into now, we're seeing that the past influences and the past developments have done good to bring a great country, big country, and a hell of a lot of people out of, a great amount of them out of poverty, and bring their national economy up, and bring their societal economy up. Regardless of whatever political problems and societal problems you have, you don't have one country who's perfect. So there's development of this being new for the last 60 somewhat years. Now our chairman now, Xi Jinping, he wants to say, in which he said this too, and it threw every school, every educational institution up in a frenzy, we want our culture back. We have to go back to our traditional culture and start using those principles and start incorporating that. So everyone now is starting to do cultural projects because they got the okay and they say, oh my God, now we can do it. We have the money. We have the infrastructure. We have the force behind ourselves. We can do it now. Now they want to go in. So someone's going to say, communism can't do anything with Confucianism. Sorry, you can. Who's to say you can't?
Yeah.
What bias are we looking at communism from?
I actually just saw, I can't remember the name of the speaker, but there was a TED Talk, and he was describing how the Chinese government selection system works. Mm-hmm. And essentially, he said, it's a lot more of a meritocracy even than the system in the United States, right? Because the United States, a lot of it depends on money and connections and whatnot. Not to say that that's entirely absent in China as well, but he said that it's sort of more founded on these Confucian principles. And
yes, it is a meritocracy, and it's becoming purged in a good way with our current president here. And I say our because I'm here in this country. So I abide by the rules and laws of this country. And so I say our. When I'm in America at that point, then it's our too, but in America. So here he's cleaning house. He's going out and saying who's been in here screwing up things, who's been doing things illegally and finding or making loopholes when there were not any loopholes for their own benefit. And these people are running for the hills. They're going all to America and Europe, hiding out because they screwed up big time. They are the ones that for the last 30 years have caused shitstorms in this country.
And the same thing in many other countries.
Well, yeah, because now they're trying to take asylum in America or in other countries around the world, and they're billionaires. And how the
Hmm.
hell are they going to be doing that unless they've been doing under the table things? And Xi Jinping is really finding this out. So each generation of leaders in any country always bring a specific type of change. And they can only do so much according to this mind state of the people working for them and the people they're influencing in society and the people of society itself. Okay, so each one is a step up. So now, what's Confucius's influence in society now? Well, it's been here and never left. That's something that's not out because this is in the blood and the bones of people over 2,000 plus years. This has been in their bones, their blood. This is their DNA. That whole energetic charge is this influence. Okay, so it's very prevalent here. It's just not in that movie-like manner and all this glitz and glamour of Chinese culture that people are sold due to, the movie industries and movies and television and magazines and whatever.
It's more subtle.
It's so subtle because it's the people's lifestyle. That's why it's subtle. People are, well, they don't wear Chinese clothes. Oh, they don't do the Chinese traditional things. Really? You go to any Chinese person in the street, they like to drink tea. They like to listen to traditional Chinese music once in a while. Not everybody knows kung fu. Who said everyone has to know kung fu? Can all the people in America ride horses? I don't think that everybody's a cowboy in America.
True.
Right? No one says yee-haw anymore unless you're in Texas or in the South. I mean, really. So not everybody here is a tea drinker and bows their head when they say hello to you and goes ha ha ha. Nobody does that shit here. That's not Chinese culture. Chinese culture is the lifestyle people live, and it's been with them. It's not something you take out and just put on a pedestal and say, this is Chinese culture. I have a little symbol in my window. Okay, I have a nice little Chinese style house. No, it's not that. It doesn't matter what the place looks like. It's how people act. It's their behavior. And it's Confucius teachings, and that essence is in there. And you got to get past the bias and stereotypes to see it because it's very subtle, but it's very obvious too at the same time. You know?
All right. Well, let's. Why don't we move along to the next analog?
Okay. Let's talk about being a nobleman. Excuse me. The master said, Confucius said, if the nobleman is not heavy, then he will not inspire awe in others. If he is not learned, then he will not be on firm ground. He takes loyalty and good faith to be of primary importance, and has no friends who are not of equal moral caliber. When he makes a mistake, he doesn't hesitate to correct it. So heavy would mean consistent, not parting from character, his virtue and conduct. If he slacks off, others will not be amazed by his being, and they too wouldn't want to study how to be virtuous. If this whole piece is stating that someone of noble character, someone worthy of others' praise, someone who's respected and revered in the proper ways of such a thing, always looks to correct their mistakes and be at peace in their heart. He also keeps close those of moral and virtue, either equal to him or even higher. So he was indeed leaving techniques to people so they can become a greater person in conduct and virtue, and had nothing to do with the idea of kissing one's ass.
Yeah, I'm just kind of taking that in.
Well, I mean, these Confucius quotes have been bamboozled. People have been messing around with them for their own benefit. Okay, and it's hard to translate Chinese language if you are going to sit there and say, "Oh, this translation is correct because I like it." No, it's stupid. It's ignorant because you have to check. Why is this character written the way it's written? Traditional characters have a few characters pushed together because there's a meaning for those reasons. There's a reason for those types of characters together. They create a whole entire context. And if you don't understand the context and then the essence and the mannerism in which it's written and the influence of why it's written that way, you will not get anything close to its true meaning.
Yeah, it's kind of off topic or a side issue here, but reading some of the Analects, it really reminds me of like the Greek Stoics.
Oh,
But again,
Enlighten.
I don't want to diverge too much from the topic. That's a whole other ball of wax.
Well, there's another quote here, and I would like to go into it. I really like this, and this was part of the other one too. Not part of it, but it speaks like it. Confucius says, I am not bothered by the fact that I am unknown. I am bothered when I do not know others. This is really important for people in society now. How many people assume that they are the center of the world? How many feel disregarded when they believe they have done so much and have met so many people that when they are in a new surrounding, those who are around do not even know who he or she is. So this quote by Confucius says to the cultivator that it is not great to be known by many. It is itself a great thing to have known many. When a learned person, not just in education but in cultivation, knows many, then he can help in teaching others how to cultivate a noble and virtuous character. When a learned one knows but a few, he or she, is limited in their outreach.
Sorry, my children just showed up here.
Hi, babies.
And they're up there fighting already.
Oh yeah.
I'll have to read some of these Confucian precepts to them.
You're so funny. Okay, kids, sit here and listen. Confucius say, do not hit when angry. Hit when the other person has no clue. I like this. Fun. Okay, so the next one I think is pretty cool, and it's been subject to misunderstanding. One of his disciples, Mengzi, asked about the meaning of filial piety. Confucius said, it means not diverging, from your parents. Later, when Fanshi, another disciple I assume, was driving him, Confucius told Fanshi, Meng Sun asked me about the meaning of filial piety, and I told him not diverging. Fanshi said, what did you mean by that? Confucius said, when your parents are alive, serve them with propriety. When they die, bury them with propriety, and then worship them with propriety. So what does propriety mean? And in Chinese, well, I tell you, it's very easy to misunderstand this thing. Propriety means many things in Chinese. But let's look at it simply and put it as behaviorism. When it is that one serve with propriety, it means be of good behavior by not acting aggressively, not arguing and using harsh speech, and assisting one's parents in household duties. The key here is assisting, not becoming a slave. These ideas were definitely taken out of context and utilized to create a society of classes. It's not the education of Confucius' thinking. It is the lack of education and understanding by those who sought to use his methods as a way of a control. If a parent decides to have their child do things that are harmful, of course the child shouldn't do it. And of course the parent shouldn't even think of it. How about arranged marriages then? Parents should have the wisdom to see what kind of a person is fitting for the child, yet of course this can't be forced, and the child can indeed reject any offer. Parents had taken this way too selfishly and condemned their children to harsh punishments just for not following their wishes. There is a way to object, and a way to object which results in conflict. Obviously, no one wants to put down their ego and work together. Thus, history of parents' aggression, or aggressive parents towards their children, because the children don't feel the same way. It really just gets all messy.
So the arranged marriages are okay as long as they give you a good-looking chick, right?
Hey, if my parents said, look, we got this woman, she's a really good lady, she's into the things you're into, she likes this kind of lifestyle you're into, and she also can bring a little difference, why don't you take a look, go meet her, she's interested in talking with you, basically there's a lot of likeness there. We think it'll be beneficial. I would jump on the opportunity in a split second. But if they said, yeah, this woman, she owns a crack house, and a coffee shop above the crack house. I mean, it works out good because after you get down off crack, you want to go get some coffee. It works it works both ways. And if you got coffee and you're down from coffee, you have a few extra bucks, you buy some crack. I mean, you can't go wrong. I would probably not go for that. And
Unless
they
you
say,
were
well, it really
unless you were a crackhead.
crackhead, right? Or, unless my father says it really be good for our business because then we can do our business with the crackhead, and then expand and own the streets, and then I say no, and then he shoots me. It can work that way too. We gotta just make sense, man. It's a lot of common sense, and much of what has been translated and agreed upon has been for the benefit of those who are in the position to translate and give education. So people don't want to lose the place they're in. They want to keep their power. And that is not nature, that is condition. They're taught to believe that this is the right way to do things or the way they should do things because they want, or if they want something, they should get it. I mean, I have the same problem here with kids out here. I have kids here that I see in the streets, little children, well, not even 4 years old, just, pushing other kids out of the way to get on the quarter machine, the quarter car machine that they can rock back and forth in. I don't know. I forgot how to say that in English. You just put a quarter in and then you play for about 30 seconds or a minute with music and you rock back and forth. And I overhear one of the parents saying how, I want my kid to just take whatever he wants. And I look at them and I say, well, that's the problem with our society these days. Kids are brought up with parents just like you.
Yeah.
I said, I got a kid and my kid was playing a game. He came over and just took one of the things to play the game with for my kid. And my kid looks at me. He's 2 years old. He looks at me and steps back and looks at me like, what the hell is going on here? So I look at the kid who was playing and I say to them, you can have this one, but that's it. Okay, the game right now is occupied. And the parents are just smiling. And I say, your smiling actually makes the kid think it's okay to steal from other people. And they just look at me with a frown like, and I told my son, I said, you get your piece and you go play. And he looks at me a little scared because he's like, what the hell? These kids trying to push around. They won't push him, but they just try to get in front. And then they backed off. Or my kid wants to go play on the slide and a few little children, 3, 4 years old, blocking his way, saying, you can't come. And I look at them. I said, oh, really? Can you? Tell my son, go ahead, go ahead, keep going. And he looks at me because he knows that there's a conflict. And I say, you keep going. And the kid just looks and she takes her hand away and looks at me. I say, and? I say, this kind of thing is not good. Do you understand that? You don't understand it. So I'm not going to lecture a little kid. But I'm not going to empower this kind of situation. I'm not going to take my son and put him on the other side because this little child gets taught by her parents that she can do this to other people and take control over things. Of course, kids will be kids and that's how they'll play. But if you teach them from a young age that this kind of thing is not right, they will not do that. My kid, my son, he knows the right thing in the sense of if a kid wants to play with his toys, he'll let him play, and when he wants it back, he will bother that kid to get it back until he does. Even if the kid runs away with it, he will go chasing the kid, saying, my toy. And then when the kid doesn't want to give it back, I go right up to the kid and I say, can I have the toy, please? And the kid looks at me and goes, okay. And I say, Tanya, you tell him, I want my toy back, please. And you don't do it by pushing people. But I've seen other kids pushing each other just for some ridiculous nonsense. 3 years old. This is the mentality of parents. They're kids. They'll just do that. No, because then they'll become the crackheads in office who are ruining the country. Really. So this is where we go to the next one, an idea on society. Confucius says that as for a neighborhood, it is its ren. It's Chinese word, ren, that makes it beautiful. If you choose to live in a place that lacks ren, how can you grow in wisdom? What is ren? Humanity, humaneness. So what makes a place livable or even worthy of remembering? It's not the beautiful sights so much as the quality of the people. The place is beautiful, but the people are without proper restraint and conduct. How can one live peacefully, safely, according to a right conduct? I mean, you can have a villa and then you have neighbors some ways down the road who are morons and just, throw eggs at you every time you pass by, or throw their garbage in the middle of the street, glass and stuff, and when you drive up, they pop your tires. I mean, why would you want to live there?
Is Ren almost like would you say a culture? Would that be a translation of it?
Ren would be humaneness. Excuse me. It has a lot of meaning to it. The character for Ren is made up of two characters. One is the character for person on the left side. The other character right to the side of that one is the character for the number 2. It means it takes two people to make things happen. And they work together harmoniously when you do things properly. Not properly to get whatever the hell you want. It means properly to keep things in harmony. So Ren means to be humane. But it goes very deep into just that.
All right.
But I think we can see, culminating this talk, coming to a close, I mean, we can see that Confucius, just from these few quotes we've been talking about in our dialogue, he's not saying just be a brown noser. He's not saying do whatever anybody wants. He's saying if you don't like what's happening, learn how to express yourself without causing conflict and emotion. Have a, what's the word here? Have the... know how to damn, I'm forgetting my English. Be educated on how you want to explain yourself. Have the plan. Make a plan on how it's going to be done. So if you have a way to get something done, don't just say I want this done because I think it's right. No, give me the rhyme and reason. Give me how can I do this in order to make this work. Don't just sit there, I think you're an ass. I think you're a moron. I think you're stupid and ignorant. Well, that doesn't give any way to change the situation. That just causes people to become angrier. So why don't you come with your problem and have a solution? That's the word. Jeez. Have a solution to your problem. Then you can have a respectful conversation where you can find ways to change it. He's literally saying, cultivate your character. Cultivate your mind. Cultivate your essence, your body, your energy, so you can have the demeanor and the power inside to actually influence the things you want around you to change for the good.
You are very wise.
Confucius is the one. I'm telling you, it's just been so badly translated or badly, criticized. People can't see past.
Well, in the West, right, people have more of a, I don't know if you want to call it a sense of individualism or liberalism where sort of the individual is king. And I think when they look at Confucius, it kind of runs contrary to that.
Yep.
That's my take anyway.
Well, yeah, and it's true. I mean, if you look historically in China with a lot of these people who were known to be sages, they didn't want to take office politically. They didn't want to be kings. Right. They wanted to say, no, you do it. I'll just go hang out in my tree. And though Confucius was trying to get into politics, and he was in politics, and he was looking to get, I wouldn't say he was grasping or attaching to the outcome of ambitiousness to be high positions to get his point across. He found good in his point. And why can't people find good in their points and believe it and really want to propagate that? What's wrong with that? If what I say doesn't cause people to jump off a building, then damn, that's good stuff. And if it doesn't cause people to, create a banking system that causes problems for the rest of the world, then damn, that's good. Why not want to get into positions of political influence to help change things societal-wise? That is important. That was his idea. But he wasn't like, I want to get into the king's friendship and I want to become the king eventually. No, it's saying, I have something good. I know it's good. And you can't tell me otherwise because, damn it, man, people do good with this stuff that I do. So I want to try to get in a place where people can hear it. And he got opposition all over the place. Some people liked it. Some kings liked him. Some kings didn't. But that's just the way life is in the world of relativity. Like attracts like, opposites oppose.
And even if, some of the rulers might have looked at it as, how do I say this, as a good way to rule the people or as a way to put down rebellion. I mean, even although that was what they viewed it as, the end result was still a good outcome regardless, right?
Pretty much. People have used it to quell the problems in society, just kind of just stifle it or muffle it, and it just what happens. It just what happens. I mean, people. I believe in God, and everyone should believe in God. So let's go and kill people who don't. I mean, come on. It's common in our history of the world, but people interpret things for their own benefit, and most people are afraid to put down their benefit for the sake of others. Instead of putting down your benefit, why not bring people up with you? Why not try? So a lot of people in power don't want to do that. They don't want to feel like they lost their position. They don't want to bring people up with them, because then they'll be seen equal and no one would praise them. So it becomes a big ego problem. But if you did do that and brought people up together, then you would have something totally different. And that's what Confucius is trying to say. And his teachings are very good for now, because I tell you, the world, the emotional world, the intellectual world, okay, societal-wise, family-wise, and government-wise, has not changed one bit at all throughout history. It's only become more influential through technology, but it has not changed. People are the same all over the world in every type of aspect of every type of mind state, because that's all that is. There's no difference between the person now and a person 500 years ago, except their behavior. So that's why these teachings, ancient-wise, are very good for any time, because it's not that you can interpret the use of them. It's just that you look at the use of them and go, holy crap, this is so fitting. As long as you drop the ego.
That's always the hardest part, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
All right, well, why don't we end on that note? And
Okay.
I'll leave off with a little quote here, as I always do.
Oh, yeah.
All right, you ready?
Uh-huh.
It takes many nails to build a crib, but only one screw to fill it. And that's one of those bad Confucius jokes. Confucius saying it takes many nails to build a crib. Yeah, sorry, I couldn't resist. My mind.
Oh, man.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for listening to Expedient Means of Learning Way and Time on Radio. Please be sure to join us next week as we discuss the spirit and soul, the continual search inside a metaphor.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
All right, that's a wrap.
Bye-bye. Peace.